Hello, this is Mr. Jared, and in this video tutorial, I'm going to be 3D modeling this object in SolidWorks. So depending on when you are assigned this object, you may or may not have already done some very simple ones. In this case, for this video, I did actually assign objects like this prior to this video. And what I was working on here with you is trying to teach you how to draw efficiently. So my little memo up here says the above section demonstrated efficiency, modeling with the least amount of sketches needed. In the below section, that's all of these, okay? In the below section, you may not be able to model the entire object in one sketch. So you're still going to try to use that practice of using the least amount of sketches, but you might not be able to do this all in one sketch. So it says you will have to use multiple sketches and perform additive and subtractive extrusions. So you'll have to actually cut this hole through. You'll have to cut this rectangle through. Okay, so I'm going to draw this in two different ways. That's why I have two different video directions down here. The first one, which is the recommended way, is the typical way that a student would do it. So I'm going to do this in a fashion that does not confuse you too much. And that way it's going to be looking at my origin first and kind of building off of that. So in other words, creating a base to work off of. So I can see with my origin located down here that I kind of have this Z shape that extrudes all the way back. Okay, so I'm going to start out by trying to draw that Z shape and extruding back, and then adding this rectangle box, cutting this hole, cutting this rectangle hole. Okay, so that's the recommended way because I don't want you to get too confused. Once you get skilled at this, there is a more efficient way of drawing this part though. So we are in inches. I apologize there. We are in inches. That's why you see a lot of decimal places. So if you haven't already, you can pull that to another screen. You can make a new part in SolidWorks. And let's make sure our units are in inches or IPS. My computer defaults to that. I'm going to go to my Sketch tab and select Sketch. And I'm going to be sketching on the front plane. I'm just going to use my line tool here and connect to my origin. And I'm going to try to draw a series of horizontal and vertical lines to create that Z shape. Now I'm purposely going to mess up on one of them, which you don't need to. You can try to draw yours perfectly. But once you get your Z, if you notice that one of them do not have a vertical or horizontal relation next to it, for instance, like this angled one that I messed up on, you can simply select that and set that relation that it needs. Okay? So now I have my Z shape. So from here, I can actually go to the dimension tool and I can start to dimension this. So it says that small width is 0.5. It says from the left all the way to the far right is 1.75. My height here, this line, it says is 0.63. From the bottom all the way up to the top is 0.88. And then I don't have any specified measurements yet for these. So I do have to do a little bit of thinking and reading my drawing and maybe some simple math. Okay, so it doesn't tell me how far up this line is, but it does say from the very top down is 0.5. So I might have to dimension in a different way. Instead of going from the bottom up, this time I'm going from the top down. Okay, so I'll do that one. That's this line, 0.5. But this thing is still blue. So if you don't know why it's blue, you can get off of whatever tool you're on, click and hold on a dot, and I can try to move it around. I can't move up or down, but I can move left or right. So that means it doesn't know the distance from the origin, left or right. So again, let's do some little bit of math here. So there's nothing that says this line to the origin, but maybe if I look around, there's other measurements left and right that I can use. Okay, and those measurements are this. So it says 0.5 from the very end into this, which we are not drawing that rectangle yet, but this rectangular object is actually 0.38 wide. So if I add these two numbers together, 0.5 and 0.38, I'll know how far this line is away from this end. So you can either do that in your head, or you can simply just make SolidWorks do it. So if I click that line and this line, I can actually type that equation in here, 0.5 plus 0.38, and it will figure that number out for me. Now everything is fully defined, so from here we can go to the Features tab and hit Extrude. And I want my origin in the front, so I'm actually going to hit the reverse button to send it backwards. And I'll change my measurement to my overall depth, which is 0.75. And I can see that in the top left of my picture. Now with this fully extruded, now I can do new sketches to add onto this to get that rectangle box. Okay, so the two ways that you could do that, that are easy. You could do it on the top and extrude down, or what a lot of students forget is the back. You could extrude forward, or actually there is other ways. You could do it from here and extrude up, or this one and extrude out. But the typical way that I think most students think is they sketch on the top. So get your sketch tool again, select that top, and if you haven't learned by now, you can rotate with your mouse, but you can also use some quick keys. So Control 1 through 6 rotate you to different flat views. Control 7 on your keyboard, if you hold in Control and press 7, goes to an isometric, but what I like to use is Control 8. This is called Normal 2, so it rotates you to the view that you are drawing on at that time. Okay, and that is the top view in this case. Now I'm going to get my rectangle tool. I'll click in that corner and just draw a rectangle out. I'll dimension this. So from the very end to this line we've already discovered is actually 0.5. And coming forward, we don't necessarily have a number. So again, we might have to do a little bit of math. So coming forward, it doesn't have a number, but from the front back, it does say it's 0.38. So you could actually calculate that if you really wanted. 0.75 minus 0.38, but don't make it more challenging than it is. Just use the front line and put this at 0.38. Okay. Now I'll go to the Features tab and hit Extrude, and I'm going to rotate around so you can see what I'm doing. And notice it's defaulted to go up. I actually want to reverse this, and I can figure out that number. That is going to be 0.5, and that number I can see right here. Okay, 0.5. So I'll set my measurement to 0.5. And I'll hit the green check. So now there's that part. Okay, now to cut the hole through, we're going to do the sketch again. So just sketch right up on top, hit Control 8, and we'll draw our circle. Now you might be saying here, well, hey, why are we doing another sketch on the same surface? That's not the most efficient way. I understand that. Remember, this video is more about how I think a lot of students do this. So this is what I'm just going to recommend so you don't get too confused. Okay, so now there's 3 measurements to that. So from the back to the circle is 0.38. Okay, from the left to the circle is 0.25. And the diameter is 0.26. All right, then we'll go to the Features tab, and this time I'm going to use the Extruded Cut. So cut removes, okay? And I'm going to change this from blind to through all because I want it to go all the way down. I'll do that same practice for over here, so I'll rotate around with my mouse. And this time I am going to get my sketch tool, and I'll click on this surface. And again, hit Control 8, get your rectangle tool, and just draw your rectangle. Then you can go ahead and use those measurements that you see in the picture. So from the front of this to that line is 0.25. It says the overall width of this is also 0.25. And it says the height from the bottom is 0.13. Then again, I'll go to my Features tab and hit Extruded Cut, and I'll send this through all. And it will cut the whole way through that thing. Green check, and there is my object. So let's check to see if we drew this all correct. Changing our material, so I'll right click, and it says this one is copper, which is a default. And I'll evaluate the mass properties, and I should get a mass of 0.19. And if I'm following where the origin actually is, it should have an X center of mass value at 0.4, a Y at 0.43, and a Z at negative 0.4. So if you got that, you can save it and move on to the next one. If you didn't, please problem solve and figure out where you went wrong.